If you find yourself in this circumstance where you're in need of help and you cannot help yourself, in the first he says, Ya ibadallah aghithuni. But in the other hadith he says, say, Ya ibadallah a'inuni. Using that very same word for help that we find in Surah Fatiha. This is explicit instruction from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Sahaba were keenly aware of seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way, from those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed the help in their hands. When this ummah was in Mecca, before the hijrah, and none of you can say that this ummah is suffering more now than it did during that period of oppression when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was in Mecca before the hijrah. We're comfortable now compared to them. Things are easy for us. What's the difference? We're weaker. In that state, where Muslims were being tormented, harassed, tortured, simply for saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's all they had done. In Surah Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they called out to Him, asking for assistance, asking for help in a particular way. They said with the verse that we began with this afternoon, أَجْعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ وَلِيًّا. Oh Allah, send us a defender from yourself. And it continues, أَجْعَلْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ نَصِيرًا. Oh Allah, send us a helper from yourself. This is the dua that they made. They called out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking His help, but knew that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to provide them with help, it was going to be the strongest amongst them, those closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who would be the source of that help. In Tafsir Jalalain, it's mentioned that Sayyidina Ibn Abbas said that I was amongst those, myself and my family, we were amongst those who made this dua. We called on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did we ask Him for? We asked Him for help. Rather, we asked Him for a helper. We asked for someone to be sent to us to help us. And He said, in what form did that help come? Those who made hijrah to Medina to Munawwara had the best of helpers, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So when they needed help, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was there for them. And as we know, not all of the Muslims were able to make hijrah. Some of them remained behind in Makkah al-Mukarram. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam assigned one of the Sahaba to be in charge of them, to protect them. And that was their help there. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped them. With Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And with one of the Sahaba, undoubtedly a wali, to help those there. This is the means by which we are going to acquire help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our time. I am not confident that I am in a state that I am deserving to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He will respond to me. But I trust that my connection to Ghaus Azam Shaykh Al-Gillani, inshaAllah, will be the only means by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to provide for me. And this is the function of that person who we call the Ghaus. He is that one wali at the top of the hierarchy that Rasulullah mentions, whose heart is like the heart of Israfil. He's at the very top. And we mentioned that one of his characteristics is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers his dua. And the reason why we say he is the Ghaus, and he is Ghaus Azam, the best of helpers, is because unlike us, who make dua for ourselves, at best we make dua for our families. The awliyaullah, Ghaus Azam chief amongst them, makes dua for the entire ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is the other characteristic of the awliyaullah, their generosity. And we'll conclude, inshaAllah, with the words of Ghaus Azam Shaykh Al-Qadiri radiyallahu anhu himself, who told us just how far he would go for our sake, that we might benefit from him. This ummah is suffering now, undoubtedly, and we're in need of the assistance of Ghaus Azam Shaykh Al-Qadiri. However, as bad as things are now, there will be a time when they will be worse. Whatever we're experiencing now is pleasure compared to the suffering we'll encounter on Qiyamah. And to show you just how far the awliyaullah go for our sake. Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiyallahu anhu said famously, and this is the quote that we mentioned, but it's a rather longer quote where this is recorded. He says, "My hand is over my murids as the sky is over the earth." But it continues. He says, "My hand is over my murids the way the sky is over the earth." And he says, if one of my murids is not perfectly fine, if one of my murids, let's say we can say, is not a wali, I am perfectly fine, so we don't have to worry. And he tells us that on Qiyamah, my feet will not move from standing in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until He transports me and all of you to Jannah, inshaAllah. He has that dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer his dua. And He includes every single one of us in it. And He Himself will not set foot in Jannah until we are given that blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to join Him. And we know that being a murid of Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, giving your hand to a shaykh from the silsila of Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani is a great thing. And it brings you very close to him. But the generosity of Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, the generosity of the Awliya Allah, is that he does not limit this community of his murids only to those who gave their hand to a shaykh, although those people will benefit the most from him, undoubtedly. We don't want to compare those who have some relationship with Ghazi Azam, love for him, but they haven't given bayt. We don't want to compare these two groups because they're not the same. The person who's given bayt has more protection, more security. But we're talking not about our rank, we're not talking about our rank as murids, we're talking about his maqam. And his maqam of generosity is that community of murids stretches far beyond those who have given bayt. One of his students came to him and asked him, what would you think of a man who called himself a Qadri but had not given bayt to you and didn't know you? He said, he's included amongst my murids, simply by calling himself a Qadri. So this includes everyone who loves him, and it goes beyond that. He told us that everyone who crossed the threshold of his khanqa, the doorway into his khanqa, would benefit from this dua. Even more so than that, he said, or rather it's recorded about an encounter between him and some of his students, that they came to him saying that in one of the cemeteries in Baghdad, they could hear screams of pain coming from one of the tombs. That's how badly someone was being punished in that tomb. And I asked for his advice on what to do about the situation. So he asked them, was he one of my murids? They said no. Did he come to the dars? No. Did he ever pray behind me? Even once? No. Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani lowered his head in silence and closed his eyes for several minutes. He then raised his head again and said, the angels have just come to me and said that that man saw my face once and had a good opinion of me, so he is forgiven. That is the maqam of the person not knowing who he is, just has a good opinion of Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. So imagine the benefit that those of you gathered here to remember him, who know him, will receive. And then imagine those of you who have given bayt in the hand of a shaykh from his silsila, imagine the benefit that then you will receive from him. So we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to always remain within the ranks of the murids of Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. We ask that He keep us all under the banner of the protection of Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani. We ask that He include us amongst those who will benefit from His dua, that we will stand with Ghazi Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani on Qiyamah and walk with him into Jannah, inshaAllah. And especially we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give this ummah the tawfiq and the humility and the wisdom to understand that protection and help is waiting for us, but not in our hands,
but in the hands of Ghaus Azam Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani when he raises them up to make dua for us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give wisdom and tawfiq to every Muslim to understand this, that inshaAllah this ummah will be protected, this ummah will be saved inshaAllah, this ummah will be relieved of the suffering that it's experiencing. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammadin ma'ahdan yuziri wal karim wa alihi wa sahbihi. So much, Jazakallah khairan.